Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast. This is Off the Cuff with Mo and Amber, where I bring a leadership topic and we get Mo's thoughts. So, Mo, my children, my 19-year-old young adult twins did the unthinkable. They told me I did something right. Okay, well, to be honest, they didn't use those words, but that's what I'm taking from the conversation. Because we were, I caught them in the rare moment where they were willing to have a conversation with their mother. And they're talking about their friends, how a lot of their friends, 18, 19, 20 years old, still have a curfew. Or, the parents have their location on their phones, which I have their location, but, they have like the Life 360 app. And so they'll be out hanging out and they'll get phone calls from their parents or text messages. Where are you? Who are you with? When are you to be home? Or they'll want to go out and do something and their friends, some of their friends might have to check in with their parents. And on occasion, their parents will be like, no, I think you should come home. And my daughters were like, yeah, that never happens. And one of their friends said to them, like, your parents don't care where you are. And at first I'm like, shoot, am I a terrible parent? But my daughter said, it was really interesting because she said, it's not that my parents don't care where we're at. I think they just kind of figure they raised us right and they expect us to do the right thing. And if we don't, it's on us, which is kind of true. Although these are the same kids that would complain that everyone else's parents would, do their laundry and do things for them. And in their words, they had to do everything for themselves, which is not entirely true. But it was really interesting. I started thinking about that. Like, I would love to say that was intentional, that I went into parenting, like, here's my grand plan. Really, I do think there was an awareness that it's my responsibility to make sure someday they are functioning, contributing members of society and that they don't need me, that they're able to function and live their life and make good choices. And I thought about leadership and our conversations and how, man, as a young, less experienced leader, I did not go into leadership with that same mindset. And as you know, it was a long time in leadership positions before I ever started to think about leaders and those that I was working with being able to do things without me. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts, like, what if anything, did I do right? And really, what are some transferable principles that going into leadership or for leaders that are already in a leadership position, what can they be thinking about where we can actually set up our people to be independent from us?
The first thing is that my parents raised me completely the opposite of the way that you raised your daughters. So my mom had strict curfews and none of my friends ever did. So you would have been the mom of my friends that got to do whatever they wanted and I would have had to go home. I turned out okay and your kids turned out okay. So really it's not about whether you let your kids go out or they have a strict curfew. It's really about is the principles that you're teaching somebody. And this is what I always tell leaders when I bring them on. I can't teach you the foundations of being a good and decent person. You either have it or you don't. The question that I would have for you is, what was it that gave them a long leash and that autonomy, and what worked in that parenting style?
Gosh, I think honestly, part of it was a process. So obviously at kindergarten, they weren't allowed to run around town without me knowing where they're at and who they're with. But as they grew up, it was really trial and error. It's like, okay, you want this little bit of freedom. Here are some of the rules, because I wasn't ruleless, but here are some of the things that are important. Here's what I want you to do, whether it is check in or be where you said you were going to be at the time that you said you were going to be there. And as they continued to make good choices, then I felt comfortable trusting them to, okay, now we can, like, expand the leash, as you will. It was gradual and it was intentional in terms of the things that I taught them to do for themselves. So while they say they had to do everything themselves, that's not entirely true. But I was a working mom and we're very busy. I say that, comparatively to other people, but I didn't make any sense to me to do everything for people that could do it for themselves. So we learned how to do our laundry at a young age. They learned how to pack their lunches. Now I went to the grocery store and got all the things and for them to do it. But if they were capable of doing it, why did I have to do that for them? One. And two, I think it stole from them the ability to like, hey, I can handle things on my own. So now, as they are a year out of high school, it's a lot easier for me to trust that they're taking care of the things or school, work, friends that they need to take care of. That doesn't mean I'm not here as a sounding board. It just means for the past 19 years, we have made gradual progression towards their autonomy.
When we use that same lens for leadership, the leadership lens, the question is, can you trust the people that are on your team? And Peter Drucker talks about strategy and culture. And one of my favorite quotes is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And really what we're talking about here is culture. In this case, it is family culture. And for you, like you said, you taught them gradually within creating that culture that if we give you a little bit and you work well with that trust is going to expand. So kudos to you guys and kudos to your girls for being able to do that. For leaders out there, you want to be the kind of person where whatever team you're on, your boss, your supervisor, he or she can count on you and they know that they're not going to have to impose a curfew on you, so to speak. I want my leaders, those who are looking to me, I want them to say, well, Mo believes in us, but really that's up to me. I'm the one creating that culture. So just like parents create the culture for their kids, in leadership, you have to create that culture. And so the question is, leaders, how do you create culture? Because if you don't create it, it's just going to happen. And trust me, you don't want culture to just happen, because then you're going to be put in a place where you screw it up or your team screws it up, and then your company's going to lose money or somebody's going to get mad and you're going to get fired.
So, Mo, what does somebody do if they're in a situation where maybe they are identifying, I have allowed a certain culture for, let's say, a couple years, and now I realize I need to make a culture shift. What's something that a leader can do right away to begin to make that shift?
If you have allowed a culture, in this case, probably a culture that's not that good, and you want to course correct, you need to start doing the little things. Your people, they're going to expect you to toe the line 100%. The best thing to do is to not let that culture happen. But if you have created a culture that is not what you wanted, first of all, you're to blame. It's not your people. They're going to do 100% of what you do wrong, but they're only going to do 50% of what you do right. So you have to do things right all the time. The best thing to do is to make a change now. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? Today.
Well, that's off the cuff. We'll see you next time.